my name is Kelley Baek. I am a sibling builder here, so very thematic with our recent LEGO movie too. I have built Westworld, or as I've titled this layout, it doesn't look like anything to me. So fans of the show will recognize that quote. It's something that some of the main robot characters say all the time when they're presented with conflicting external realities. So they see pictures of the outside world, and they'll say, it doesn't look like anything to me, like they're programmed to not recognize it. So I built this, started on it, I don't know, 6 months or so ago. Fan of the show, and my husband is as well, and he mentioned something about, you should totally build LEGO Westworld, and I said that's going to take a ton of parts. I don't know that we want to commit to making that, and he's like, no, you should do it. I'm like, I'm going to take that as the approval to source whatever it is I need. So my main focus, because I don't really have the collection to make it enormous, was to build some of the key moments or recognizable pieces of the show. So I start on the far side, the modern offices. So the company in the show, Delos Incorporated, this is a future, and also I will point out, I put it right next to Jurassic Park for a reason. This is our Michael Crichton theme here. So they're both based on Michael Crichton books. So the top office is Dr. Ford and Bernard. So Dr. Ford is the original creator of these robots in this future time. And they are, talking about the design of their next theme that's coming out. So Westworld being one of their main parks. Then the second layer beneath that, on the left-hand side, I had a friend of mine 3D print the skeleton, and that is somebody else's design. They had posted it on I'm blanking on the name of the site, but free file for these 3D printers, and that is to represent the printing effectively that they're doing of these robots in the show. And on the other side, I have topical, because the LEGO group just spoke a little bit today at the convention about the not using yellow legs for a reason, because it looks like minifigs aren't wearing pants, and if you've seen the show, there's some of them that aren't they're naked, getting in their behavior adjusted, which is what's happening in that other room. And then the bottom floor is a big part of the show is when guests are coming into the park, they're presented with sort of like a wardrobe room, and it's like choose which character you're going to be. Are you going to be the good guy, the bad guy? You want to play cowboys, Indians, all of that. I had to throw in Western Emmett, he's visiting the park, having a great time.
Obviously an iconic Western character.
Yeah, everybody is familiar with Western Emmett. And hopefully he's going to run into Western Wild Style out in the park there. So then you would board the train from the show. You're going into the park, and you take a train into the town of Sweetwater. I had a tough time with the train tunnel, but I knew I wanted to have this kind of mesa where the modern offices were hidden, and then the train would come out. Also not a very skilled train builder. I've only built one train before. But when in Googling, trying to find photos of this, I realized that it's in the show, it's literally the same engine as that was used in the Johnny Depp Lone Ranger movie. I was like, perfect, how convenient, I have that.
Save you some work.
So I'm like, all I need to do is recolor and restylize that. Now, obviously, the passenger car is completely unique. So once we got that up and running today, it's been a lot more successful. I have relied on the tips of my fellow train builders around me. I brought it over to ask them how to make it stop derailing. So you'd arrive in Sweetwater, and this is where you would start your journey in the park. And I think the town of Sweetwater is intended to be like the PG soft landing into the world of Westworld, and you could go as hardcore or extreme as you want, or you can just stay here and play around and ride some horses, hang out at the saloon. So some characters to point out that are here: Western Lucy, or Wild Style, as she was known at the time, waiting for Emmett to arrive. We also have the blue dress figure. I tried to put the known, or the real life figures in the flesh tones just to kind of highlight them. But that's Dolores and Teddy, and that's a very early scene. Where they're both robots in the show. I don't think that's a spoiler. It's in the first episode, and she's picking up a can there, and then I also have the Mariposa Saloon and Hotel in the back. It is a brothel and hotel, and the character on the bottom is Maeve, and so she's the madam of that place, and she's a pretty critical character in the first and second season of the show. And then otherwise, I was just filling in with Western-looking buildings. My main goal is I ran out of tan and brown, so what other colors would blend into a Western town? And there weren't many photos available online, so occasionally I would screenshot, pictures and try to build things like that. So the McIntyre shipping and freight was something that shows up in scenes, so that's where that came from. And then the last iconic part of the show is the white church in the town of Escalante. And there's a lot of pretty pivotal moments that happen throughout time in that area. So these don't necessarily go together, but they're the ones that I wanted to highlight. And there you have one of the main characters. I think he's known as like the Man in Black because you don't know his name for the whole first season. That's the character played by Ed Harris. So he's on his Lone Ranger horse back there.
So was it fun for you to kind of delve deeper into the whole Western theme in general? I know some of this you said you were trying to recreate exactly from the show, but then others of it is just kind of Western-inspired buildings. Is that kind of a fun theme in general for you? Yeah,
it was, and it's something that I've never built before. I don't think there were any major Western themes like in my prime LEGO years, so other than Johnny Thunder Adventures, like very soft spot, I love that theme. I think I was, too late for earlier Western themes, and then, had kind of like gone off to college and stopped buying sets by the time things like Lone Ranger came out. So it was neat. I generally am building modern city type buildings, so this was like a fun way to try something different. And when I mentioned it at one of our LUG meetings, when I started building it, I think there's a lot of folks that weren't familiar with the show, and they heard me say Westworld, and they just thought, oh yeah, Western world, let's do that, let's make it into a whole collaborative thing. And so it ended up being something that just kind of extended across the rest of the table with other people's builds. So it was a fun collaborative thing to do, and I don't think we've had a Western set up at this show in any number of years. So.
Right. And then you've also got, what do we have in the back corner there?
Oh, yes. So I had mentioned earlier, I didn't lay this out until about a week before this convention, and it ended up being a lot wider to fit the track than I anticipated. So I didn't have enough buildings, and nor could I fit them on the other side of the track, and I needed something back there. And so I was thinking, what's another thing that's important from the show? And there's a Native American tribe called Ghost Nation in the show, and so I dug up some of these older figures and decided to put like a mini mesa back there, and they are kind of like a watching in the distant group for a lot of it, like an unknown mystery until the second season. They kind of will sometimes come into the town, or maybe not into the town, but interact with the characters, and then other times kind of be back in the distance. So it felt like a good thing to fill in that back corner. And a good way to, put in my cactuses and tumbleweeds are some of my most prized parts of this whole layout.
The small details that make things like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you consider it's landscape-wise, it's fairly bleak. There's not a lot to look at, and I don't think anybody wants to look at a whole table full of blank base plates. So it's like, what would be the things that are out there? I was limited in my cactuses by the number of. I'm not sure actually what that part is. I used all of them in green that I could find. So, and then I shamelessly just put in the minifig cactuses facing the other way to fill the rest in.
Nobody will notice.
And I thought about replacing the legs with plates and at least trying to make it look like a cactus, but it might be a fun Easter egg for somebody who notices that it's just a figure.
Yeah, well, excellent work here with all the buildings, the terrain, even the modern section and everything, and you got a kind of a printed backdrop there to add to the scene. So yes, I think it turned out great. Have you had people coming by and recognizing the show, like the build from the show?
Yeah, we have gotten into a little bit of a dueling soundtrack with Jurassic Park next to it. I have a speaker under this table, and they have one, and we'll take turns turning it up. That draws people in to make them recognize that this is something more than just Western, especially if they're coming from the other end of the display. I was kind of noticing earlier that when adults are walking by and they're lingering and they're staring, I know that they are fans of the show, and they start pointing out details. And then kids, there's a very adult-themed show, so kids that are walking by, they're lingering because they see, the train driving around and the lights, and so it's been fun. There's been a lot of engagement. People love, moving, lighting, all of that stuff. It makes it a lot more dynamic and definitely draws folks in.
Great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.